Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My apologies because of a delay about this video dedicated to a challenge among four World War First war games. And I already shot the video in Italian, and I published also a final assessment table that you will be able to see at the end of my job. Anyway, don't waste our time and let's proceed with this video about four strategic war games. I don't know if they are the best ones, but these war games are easy to buy and to find at the moment. Who are the competitors? Well, the lamps are going out by Compass Games, World War I by Decision Games, Paths of Glory by GMT, and The Great War by One Small Step. Enjoy that and hope to see you soon. Bye. Let's start with the first box, and well, the lamps are going out. A game by Compass Games. The picture on the cover box is an historical photo, and you find a famous statement said by the British Foreign Secretary Sir Edward Grey. On the background you find a platoon of British soldiers on march. Well, quite good the picture. Let's have a look at the back of this game. Game designed by Kirk Ullman, developed by Herman Luttman, graphic design by Tim Allen. Well, first of all, the lamps are going out. World War I is a game simulating this World War I in Europe at a grand strategic level. Complexity medium, I'd say. Playing time is through 5 hours. Well, we can say a long night or 2 shorter nights. Well, so 5 or 6 hours is not so long. Playing pieces, 176 counters, and please don't forget that you have also 100 cards that determine the events at the beginning of the sequence of playing. You have a map, and I'm going to assess later the map. A solitaire rating quite high, well, 7, between 7 and 8. Anyway, well, what's the mark that we can place? Well, I place 3 out of 4 points to this box. Please remember that the typical Compass game boxes are not so thick, so they are pretty acceptable, but well, they are not comparable to the GMT boxes. Let's open the box and let's have a look at the rules, or better, sorry guys, I want at first assess the counters. Well, I like very much the silhouettes that you find in each single counter, so I like very much, and I'd attribute a mark of 4 points as regards the counters. Some players told me that some silhouettes are not precise from an historical point of view, but well, I find them pleasant, so they pass the exam and they deserve 4 points. Let's have a look at the rules. Well, the organization is very good. I want to remind you the sequence of play for each faction. Generally, please remember that it's a game for 2 players, and you can also have 2 allied players and 1 central countries player. There is a starting event card phase, a very simple movement phase. Generally, you move from an area to another one. Combat phase. Also, the combat phase is very easy. Generally, the player that rolls the highest die roll wins the combat. And then the phase D is about the production phase. It's not so difficult to understand. You have a series of production modifier to apply that involves the resolving of U-boat attacks and U-boat attrition, and then you receive the transfer production. Production spending, what can you do during the production spending? Refit units, raise new units, construct trenches, transfer production. Please remember that you have also some cards that determine the technological advances. Last phase is the so-called regroup phase, in which you determine air superiority and you reset heavy artillery. At the page 13 you find a complete example of combat. I repeat, very easy. You simply roll the dice and you check the highest die roll. Well, very simple, and I don't like these kinds of mechanics. Anyway, they allow a quick game, and well, it's a good fact. It's an advantage playing a strategic war game in a single night or in 5 hours. So I don't like the mechanics, but the rules are well organized. So the mechanics deserve only 1 point, nothing of new, but the rules deserve 4 points. And also the playability, well, other 4 points. Last but not least, the map board. I don't like the map board. I don't like this way to draw a map board. Please remember that you will find crowded areas. Why? Because the areas are pretty small. Yes, you find some beautiful picture, but nothing more. So, well, if I think that the map board, also by considering the thickness, it's the only map board of the 4 analyzed war games that is not mounted. So only 1 point as regards the map board. Anyway, I'd advise the lamps are going out if you want to spend 2 pleasant nights with the World War I. And now let's proceed with the second war game of the challenge. I'm speaking of the World War I produced by Decision Games. Well, second game of our challenge, World War I by Decision Games, designed by Miranda. It's the deluxe edition. Please remember that there is an old World War I SPI edition, and in Strategy and Tactics number 294 there was a sort of new edition that was similar to the old spy version. Anyway, at first let's analyze the box. not bad. This white and red is appreciable. The image on the cover box, well, pretty good, not exceptional, only acceptable. Let's have a look at the back of the box. Well, World War I Deluxe is an update of the Joseph Miranda game published in Strategy and Tactics 294, and I add also that it's a game that comes directly from the old SPI word game. And 228 die cut counters. Level, as usual, it's a strategic game, so army level. Playing time from 2 up to 12 hours. Maybe please remember that I love the tradition, so I'm always for the hex and counter war games, and I think that this game is longer than the lamps are going out, but I consider probably a little more simulative than lamps are going out. Complexity medium to high, it's true, and we have also a solitaire level, a medium solitaire level. Anyway, what about the box? Well, I'd place a mark of 2 points out of 4 ones. Also, the cardboard is not so thick, so light cardboard, 2 points for this box. Let's open the game. Well, I have already punched out some counters. Anyway, traditional counters with an appreciable silhouette, NATO symbols. So I like these counters, not so bad. They are very, very similar to the old ones, to the old spy ones. And well, my mark is 3. Well, so 3 points for this counter sheet. Let's have a look at the organization of the rules manual. So I like this first picture. So it's a sort of newspaper, very, very good. And let me see. Well, in the last years, Decision Games has improved the organization, the rules. So you find introduction, components, and then immediately the sequence of play. Please remember that this game is a traditional game with some innovative rules. So you have a front activation that in the first impulse, well, is identical as regards both players. Then you have a possible second and third impulse in which the players should expend a plan marker to activate each front. So please remember that there is this sort of peculiarity that makes the game quite interesting. So then what about the movement? Very, very traditional. Well, I'm going to analyze later the map board. You have a series of possibilities to get points. Well, you can get points when you when a player occupies the enemy mobilization hex. There are also objective hexes, minor power capital, etc. So to win, well, you have to score a precise level of victory points. Let's browse the manual. Well, well written, clear, I'd say. We have a rigid zone of control. good this example, these images that gives an example about the combat that it's quite traditional. Please remember that you roll the die on the comma results table and you analyze the differential, and then well, generally you lose production points when you are losing the combat. And I like this. Why? Because if you compare the way to count the production points of this game with the other that I have just considered, that is the lamps are going out, well, I think that this rule about the production point is a little more effective. So combo result table, supply sources. So it's a traditional word game with these innovative rules by considering well the production points. Also, guys, well, I have found the sequence of play. In fact, well, I didn't remember that during the strategic warfare phase, well, you have to check the Russian Civil War table, and then finally, when are you going to spend your points, your production points during the so-called mobilization phase. So each side adds any movement point for control of mobilization and resource axis, and then obviously the two players expand mobilization points, sorry, not movement points, mobilization points to buy units. So please remember, production point, mobilization points, it's a similar story. And so, well, I like this manual, so it deserves 3 points out of 4. Well, what about the playability? Playability, I think that lamps are going out is more playable. Obviously, when we don't have the hexes, well, a word game is easier to play. So playability 2 points, but I prefer the mechanics coming directly from a typical hex encounter game. So I'd place 3 points as regards the mechanics. So a very good game, traditional game, but I think that the quality is acceptable. And as usual, let's have a look at the mapboard. Well, a mounted mapboard, guys. So I like this mapboard. Obviously, we are speaking of a deluxe edition. Good pastel colors, well written, really clear. A good Terran key printed directly on the mapboard, and you have the mobilization point track also on the mapboard. Very good. And well, my mark, I'm going to assess this mapboard with 3 points. So I think that also World War I by Decision Game passed the exam, but please remember that probably it takes at least 12 hours to complete a campaign. So please consider this peculiarity when you want to play this good game. And now, guys, let's proceed our analysis with the other competitor, that is Paths of Glory. The third game of our challenge is a classic, Paths of Glory, by Ted S. Racer. The image on the cover box is by Roger McGowan. A very, very good box. Let's have a look at the back. Well, you have an image about the mapboard. In this game we have a mountain mapboard, while in the previous versions there was only a light cardboard mapboard. Please remember, it's another strategic game about World War I. What about the complexity? Yes, medium complexity, high solitaire suitability, albeit, well, I think that this game is better when there are two players. What about how does the game last? Well, more or less, I'd say at least 12 hours. In other words, 3 or 4 long nights. Is not so short if you play the whole game. There are also some scenarios. Anyway, the box is very good. Well, if you notice, is a little different from the previous ones, albeit we have a not so thick cardboard. Well, this box seems to me hard, and it keeps the shape. So 4 points as regards the box of Paths of Glory. Anyway, let's open the game. What about the counters? Well, traditional counters, quite large, so they are so good at the side you can read easily the digits. Anyway, simple NATO symbols. You have a large numbers of trenches marker, and then you have these are the army, and then the smaller counters are about the core. So, well, I'd place a mark of 2 as concerns the counters. So I think that by considering the modern graphics, well, GMT could improve a little bit these old counters, these old style counters. Well, let's have a look at the rules booklet. Please remember that this is the 5th printing, so it's without mistakes, I think. Anyway, as usual, I don't find so many colorful examples, so many colorful images. So, well, I can consider appreciable this booklet, but no more. So, well, my mark as regards this booklet, only 2 points. Well, I think GMT could do better if it wishes. So 2 points as regards the rules booklet. Please remember that you find the setup in the last page. What about the mechanics? Well, it's not news. Please remember that this game, to play this game, you use 2 decks of cards, one allied deck and one central powers deck, and you have 3 levels about the war: mobilization, limited war, and total war. So please remember reinforcement, production points, whatever you want. Well, you find these assets, these reinforcement by playing the cards. So it's a complete card-driven game. And what about the A tables? quite basic, nothing of exceptional. Anyway, some 8 tables are always well accepted. Playability. Well, Paths of Glory about playability. I think that it's easy to learn the mechanics. We cannot affirm that it's historical, is not so. I define Paths of Glory a war game between a simulation and a simple game. So I think that in this case the level of realism is sacrificed to make these were a little more playable. So by considering the playability, well, I'd place a mark of 3 out of 4 points. And about the mechanics, by considering that everything is to be found on the cards, well, this game deserves absolutely 4 points. Let's have a look at the map. Well, a very good map. Finally, we have a mounted map. Please notice, well, pastel colors. You have everything you need is on the map board. You have the general records track, US commitment track, a terrain key. Then you have a box where you place your round markers. The box about the mandated offensive. So everything is to be found on this map board. So I can affirm that well, it's so clear, a point to point, well, no problem about the movement. So well, this map board, well, deserves other 4 points. Well, anyway, Paths of Glory still nowadays has a lot of fans. Insert it into the limited group of the classics, together with, I don't know, Russian Campaign, Hannibal, etc. So a high mark as regards Paths of Glory. And let's finish our analysis with The Great War by Nofi, published by One Small Step. Let's finish our challenge with The Great War by Albert Nofi, a game produced by the American company located in California, One Small Step. The box is not so good. Let's have a look at the back of the box. Well, it's a little better. You find all the components of this box. Obviously, the Great War is a strategic level area movement system simulation of the First World War. Please remember that, yes, it's true, I was forgetting that, it's a reprint of the game originally published by Rand. What about the playing time? Well, it's written from 2 to 4 hours. Well, I think 4 hours, but also 5 hours with 2 slow players. Complexity, also this game is has a medium complexity, and the solitaire suitability is between medium and high. Well, unfortunately, I have played once the game, so my comment, my opinions are not definitive, but I could appreciate some interesting mechanics. Anyway, box, well, acceptable, no more, as usual. Probably it's a little better than the Decision Games box, but well, by considering also the image, well, my mark is only 1. So guys, you could do better. Let's have a look at the counters. Well, basic counters, NATO symbols. I don't like these kind of graphics. So, well, another time, the Great War confirms this low quality, and also the counters deserve a low mark, only 1 point. Also the dice, so guys, please note the dice. Well, these, I don't have anything against the Chinese products, but these are the cheapest dice that you can buy a Chinese market. So also the dice are not good components. Let's have a look at the rules. Well, I had the occasion to play this war game 2 months ago, and I liked very much this, the heart of the rules, these national resource credits. In other words, another way to name the production points, mobilization points, whatever you want. And these national resource credits, well, are the main rule of the whole game system, because to do everything, the players spend resource points. When you combat, generally you lose resource points, etc. So this is a very interesting mechanic. But unfortunately, the rules don't give any example, don't give any explanation. So I don't like this kind of organization. So my mark concerning the rules is another 1. Don't forget that we have a playbook. In this case, it's called a situation book. You have several scenarios. You find 8 scenarios with the victory condition, but also in this case, I don't like the organization of the rules. And well, it's not so clear also the way to reach the level of victory. So mechanics quite good by considering the national resource credits. What about the sequence of game? Well, let me see. Frankly, I don't understand correctly the sequence. Anyway, reinforcement, naval operation, ground movement, ground combat, supply segment. And during the reinforcement segment, each player determines the number of national resource credits. So actually, each country has an allotment of resource points. So a classic traditional war game with this interesting rule, but nothing more. So only 2 points about the mechanics, but well, we cannot give more points to the other component. There are also some 8 tables. In this case, they are quite useful. Naval, well, let me see. You have the situation characteristics of the several scenarios, and NRC cost about the actions that you can start. Anyway, I repeat, the rule about the resource points is very good, but I think that one small step, could do better by improving and by organizing in a different way rules and also the playbook. Let's finish our discourse by analyzing the mapboard. Also in this case, the mapboard is mounted. Acceptable colors, but guys, map art by Ania Zilkowska. Well, frankly, I think that it's the first attempt it's the first attempt to draw a mapboard. Why? Because it's really ugly. And please remember that also when you are placing your markers, some regions are so crowded that it's impossible to play. You find some useful tables, but that's also the mapboard, in spite of its mounted feature, deserves only 2 points. So it's only better if we compare it to the light mapboard that we found in the lamps are going out, but nothing more. Well, guys, it's all in all, what can we say? Well, all in all, guys, I'm going to take a printed image. Well, it's the table that I wrote previously, and if you notice, the winner of our challenge is Pazzo Glory with 19 points. Second place, the lamps are going out in spite of its not so good mapboard, 17 points. Third place, but with a good mark, 16 point, World War I, that still represents the tradition. And unfortunately, the Great War, in spite of an interesting rule about the resource point, the Great War got only 8 points. So Pazzo Glory is 19 years old, but now, also nowadays, it can be considered the best strategic and playable war game on the First World War. Thank you for your attention, guys, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.